Hi there. My name is Daniel. I'm a diabetes nursing specialist, sports scientist, and I live with type 1 diabetes. I'm based in Sweden and I do a lot of work regarding performance optimization with people living with type 1 diabetes or LADA. And this subject is can seem quite complex, and it is a complex subject, and therefore I make lectures and courses to kind of explain this in a practical way. And I thought that I would start making some shorts, YouTube videos in English to have a extra educational resource in this subject. Today we're going to look at two diagrams just to understand the hormonal effect of physical activity and exercise, because the elevation in hormones and the changes in hormone secretion during exercise is one of the main factors why it becomes so hard to regulate blood glucose. This first diagram here is from the book Physiology of Sports and Exercise from Human Kinetics. I believe it's the ninth edition. It's a great book. I started using it when I studied sports science. And here we see the secretion of hormones during a 3 hour cycling session at 65% of VO2 max. Now, this is in a person that does not live with diabetes. We see here that epinephrine, cortisol, norepinephrine are all elevated in the beginning of exercise and stays elevated during the workout, except for cortisol that decreases with time. When these free hormones are released, the liver secretes extra glucose that is stashed in the liver as glycogen, and that elevates blood glucose. And so that is one of the main challenges in exercise with diabetes. How are you going to manage the blood sugar elevating effect? We also see that glucagon is elevated, and glucagon is the anti-hormone of insulin. Insulin is a transport hormone that transports glucose into cells where glucose is converted to energy, called ATP in physiological terms. Glucagon is the anti-hormone, so it elevates blood sugar. And the way that it does that is that it communicates with the liver to secrete extra glucose. So in this diagram, we see that glucose it doesn't really vary that much from baseline, and this is in a person without diabetes. If it would be a person with diabetes, we would most likely see that glucose would elevate more in the beginning, because it's very hard to combat that first elevation of stress hormones, and then it would likely go down. But with the methods that we're going to discuss on the channel, we can keep the blood glucose at a stable level. Let's look at the other diagram. Here is from the same book, Physiology of Sport and Exercise. This is in a person without diabetes. And this is a very interesting diagram. Here we see a person during prolonged cycling at 65 to 70% of their VO2 max. So what's very interesting here is that glucose elevates in the beginning of exercise, but insulin decreases. Now, if you live with diabetes, you would think that naturally, if glucose is elevated, insulin would also be elevated, but that is not the case. And the reason for this is acute onset insulin sensitivity. So when we start exercising, the blood flow goes away from the stomach region to the working muscle. And it's actually a direct effect of the circulation why you become more insulin sensitive. In this way, smaller concentrations of insulin have a much larger effect on the body. So that is the acute effect of insulin sensitivity. There is also a prolonged effect of insulin sensitivity. Prolonged insulin sensitivity has to do with insulin being a non-steroid hormone. Steroid hormones are made out of cholesterol, and so are cell membranes. So these hormones can go in and out of the cell, but insulin is a non-steroid hormone, and therefore it needs receptors on the cell membrane to be able to have an action. And if you work out regularly, then cells can get more insulin receptors on the membrane, and so cells can use insulin to a larger extent. And usually you say if you do a workout 48 hours afterwards, you have a elevated insulin sensitivity. Now, you would think if you have an insulin treatment that an elevated insulin sensitivity is only a good thing. And if you have the correct methods, that is so. But if you do not know how to adjust your insulin after sensitivity, it's going to become quite a hard thing. So I think these diagrams are really good to look at to understand that. If I would give some quick pointers to somebody with insulin dependent diabetes when they're just starting to work out, I would tell them that exercise will improve your blood sugar, but it might not do it in the way that you first think. Exercise puts a lot of demand on your self-management to be able to adjust bolus insulin mainly, basal insulin also, especially in the times of prolonged cardiovascular training. And it puts a high demand on food intake, that you eat properly. You may also have benefits from supplements, and we're going to speak about supplements a little bit. So, exercise may improve your blood sugar regulation, but not necessarily if you don't have the tools. In fact, I work with a lot of young athletes with type 1 diabetes, and you would think that athletes with diabetes are going to have a better hemoglobin A1C than people who are physically inactive. But that is not the truth always. I see a lot of patterns in the athletes that I work with that they struggle with their long term blood sugar regulation. Of course, being a diabetes nurse and specialist, I always have that in mind because I want them to have good health now and I want them to have good health in the future also. Diabetes technology is obviously an amazing thing, especially blood sugar sensors or glucose sensors, if we are going to be correct. Insulin pumps and insulin pens can have varied effect. From my experience, it's how you use the tool that you have. You might not get the results that you're looking for with a pump, or you might not get the results you're looking for with a pen. It's all about the method that you use, especially when it comes to physical activity and exercise. So if you wish to see some more videos and a bit of deep dives into physical activity with insulin dependent diabetes, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later. Thank you.